morning and welcome to this Boys College Olympian Sport Connect series. It gives me great pride this morning to be interviewing our director of St Stithians Hockey, amongst many other portfolios. Mr. Robin van Ginkel is the director of hockey at our school. He also happens to be the national women's coach, and of course he is Tokyo bound and will be heading to his first Olympics as the coach of our national women's side. Welcome to this BC Connect, Mr. van Ginkel.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Welcome. Relax and enjoy. It's more of a conversation than an interview. I'm sure there are going to be many young hockey players that'll be listening to this, and parents and coaches that'll be listening to this interview and conversation this morning. So, yeah, I look forward to hearing your thoughts, as it must be a really exciting time on the one hand, but probably nerve-wracking time with the COVID on the other hand. So, yeah, I look forward to getting to that a little bit later on. But maybe start off to share with people who don't know who you are, and that you hail from the East Rand. Tell us briefly about your journey through the coaching space in hockey.
Cool. It's been a journey, that's for sure. I started at Springs Boys High. I went to school there. I then got recruited to the Rao University. Adrian was there. He was the manager of hockey in those days, and I actually first got a swimming bursary to Rao for water polo and swimming. I then started playing hockey, and while I enjoyed playing hockey, I was never a top hockey player. So I played for Rao second side, played for the Res, and really found that I was really interested in coaching. So believe it or not, I started at Queen's College in Bedford View with Dave Jeffries. He was my first teacher, and that's where I started coaching. I then moved up the ranks, and I continued. I worked at St Benedict's for a while, took them their hockey, then went across to St John's. From St John's, went to the University of Johannesburg, where I coached the ladies' university team, and ended up at St Stithians, where I currently am coaching from a provincial and national point of view. Started all the way through under 16, under 18, under 21, and then started in the national teams with Jenny King and Giles and Charlie Pereira as a sports scientist, and moved across as a head coach on under 18, under 21 team, and ultimately became the national coach for the ladies team.
Sure. Listening to Stephen Gerrard a little while ago, a Liverpool legend. I know you support Manchester United, but I have the mic at the moment. He talks about a coach earning one's stripes, and that although they've earmarked him for certain positions, he feels as though he hasn't earned his stripes. Listening to your journey there, Robin, you've definitely earned your stripes. Come a long way from the dusty fields of Springs Boys High, which it took me about 16 months to get to, having driven there recently. Anyway, moving on as we move forward in this like interesting conversation. Tell us, Robin. Obviously, you got a squad of really talented ladies. What values are important to you as a coach, that you feel are going to enable both you, that have enabled you in your coaching journey, but now specifically enable you and the girls to perform at their best at the Olympics?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Before maybe I talk about the top level coaches or the players, I think what's been good for me as a coach to understand is that no matter what team I worked with, and at St Stithians I coached the under 10 boys, which is awesome. I probably get more joy out of that. And then I coach, the provincial under 16 teams 2 years ago, coach club teams, coach, provincial teams, and then at the national level. And I think as a coach, why I've been successful is because you need to be consistent in all the teams that you coach. I think it's really easy as a coach to take a good team, and I think there's probably 20 coaches that can take the Olympic team and really do well, because at that level your players are at a certain standard. I think for coaches to be considered good coaches is to be able to develop players to reach their potential. So for me, and whatever that might be, it might be under 10C, it might be an Olympic team, but if you can take a player as a coach and get them to have fun. So my first rule is always make sure the players come back to the next training session, because then you've done something right. If a player comes down once and then they don't want to come back again, you've done something wrong as a coach. High five them, make it fun. You know what it's like with the children, And if they want to come back to hockey, then you've already won the battle, because then you can start working with them as a person and developing their hockey skills. So the values for me are: make sure there's enjoyment, make sure there's trust as a coach, where the players buy into when you're tough, they understand where you're coming from. When you're in a good space with them, they understand where you're coming from. And then as a coach, once you have that player-coach relationship, creating a culture within the team, and all finding a common goal, that all happens when you're working with a team. But as a coach, the values are: be yourself, make it fun, make sure they want to come back, and then you can drive your common goal.
It's interesting listening to your answer. I was privileged enough to go to a summit a while ago, and a gentleman called Ashley Jones was presenting. You might know him, also a big sports scientist for the Crusaders and All Blacks.
Yeah.
And he talks about the measure of a great coach is the distance traveled, and that really speaks to the improvement. Starting in, for example, the under-10 C side and making your way to the B side and ultimately the A side. So, yeah, it seems like there's a strong alignment to that particular principle, which I enjoyed. Well, you've answered my next two questions with that long answer. So we're going to move straight on to another question. Always interesting for us to learn, and obviously part of people reaching certain positions is they've learned a lot. They've tried certain things, failed at certain things. Share with us a moment that was a big learning curve in your career.
Learning curves. There's been a couple, but I think the biggest learning curve for me, and maybe it's apt in a school environment, is that your investment into your players is directly with the player, not with all the external factors. And what I mean by that is, between the white lines and outside the white lines is kind of where I function. So I always look at my job as a coach in that environment being between the white lines. So that's between the white lines on the field. You invested with your players, with your staff, and I think the learning curve is to cut out all the noise on the outside. So the car park talk, the parents, the previous coaches even, a player comes from a previous coach, and that's how I coach the player, and that's where I believe the player should coach. And when you get to national level, you can imagine that in one player's career, they've had school coaches, provincial coaches, national coaches, club coaches, parents, private coaching on the side. And it's really to cut that all out and decide for you as a coach and the player what works best and what you can do to get an outcome on the field. So I think the difficulty is cutting out the noise and investing in the player and the player's career path to make sure that they reach their potential.
Okay, thank you. Rob, obviously there's probably many here, so I'm going to have to tap your brain to maybe give us a top 3 or even a top 1. But what has been your highlights in the coaching space over the last few years in your journey, your career? What's been your one highlight, or 1 or 2 highlights that have really stood out for you?
Yeah, so maybe I can speak about 2. I think what's been really a highlight for me is being able to work in multiple clubs and create a culture to breed success. So if I look at over the last couple of years, I was with the Wanderers men, and within 2 seasons, we were the top club in the men's club in the province. Then I went to UJ, which was a ladies switch, and I know you were part of my journey there, but we turned the club around, and we were the best club for a couple of years. And then I've come to Crusaders, and the same thing. Within 2-3 years, we've become the top club. And it's not only about the players; it's about building a culture and a common goal, and then really training better than anyone else to achieve that. So the highlight is being able to be successful in multiple clubs and not stay in one. And then I think from a coaching career-wise, being a winner of the Indian Hockey League, I think no one really understands. It's like IPL cricket. It's exactly the same. You draft your team. I was fortunate enough to be with the Delhi Wave Riders, and in the 3 years that I was there, we won it once, came second once, and third once. But to win an Indian Premier League with all the world superstars, the best players in the world are in your team, and talk about feeling like I'm out of my depth as a coach. I mean, you've got Australians and New Zealanders and the Spanish and the Indian players and out of my depth, but to win an Indian Hockey League will always be a highlight. And I'm hoping, obviously the Olympics now haven't gone yet, but that's a lifelong dream to attend an Olympics.
Yeah, sounds like a stellar career, Robin. Sounds like a stellar career. With lots still to come. I would hazard to say. Tell us, Robin. So, how would you describe your coaching style? You alluded to a few values early on, so there might be some alignment to that. But how would you describe your coaching style, and maybe how has your coaching style evolved from when you started to where it is today?
Yeah, of course. I almost want to give this answer as a bit of a lesson that I've learned, and maybe that will share. But I think in my early days, I was privileged enough to work with international teams and provincial teams, and I felt that knowledge was power. So, everything I learn, I keep to myself, and that makes me better, and that makes me more competitive. And I think the more I've coached internationally, and the more I've seen, the big stage, my coaching style has definitely become one where my job is to steer the ship, but surround yourself with the right people, empower people around you to bring what they can bring to the party. So my assistant coach, I don't call an assistant coach, I call a co-coach, and him and I work 50-50. My coaching style is to empower the people around me, but still be the leader and steer the ship in the direction that it needs to go. So don't feel threatened. I don't feel threatened. If someone knows more about short corner defense than I do, then I've done well. Then I've got the right people around me. And I think I also learned that a lot from Jake White. He spoke a lot about just surrounding himself with the right people. So you don't have to be the jack of all trades. You need to be the captain of the ship and surround yourself. So my coaching style is hard, fair. We create non-negotiables within the team. We stick to those. We hold each other accountable to it, and then along the way have some fun.
Okay, so yeah, you've also kind of answered my next question, which is so you obviously empower coaches, and I'm gathering a key component to your players as well as to empower your players as well and to back your players as well. So we move on to the final two questions, which is really probably slightly more on an emotional stance. Because I think for a significant portion of the population, we won't get to go to the Olympics either as spectators, but definitely as players and or coaches. So how do you feel about attending the Olympics, Robin? How do you feel about it? Talk to us about your emotions, your insights and preparation, especially during this COVID crazy time when there was obviously a point where the Olympics were in jeopardy. Just share with us your emotions, maybe yourself and the team, and got an amazing team manageress, a parent of the school as well. Yeah, take us through a couple of your thoughts and emotions.
Yeah, Carter, I actually don't know how I feel. I think it'll only be real when we actually get on the plane to go, because as you say, the last year has been so unsure whether we were going to actually get to the Olympics, if the Olympics was going to take place. Obviously, we had to qualify, and then we had to see if we still had the ticket. So it's been emotional. It's been, always plan for the goal, try and get there, get the team ready. Team selections are always difficult. So the kid in me can't wait for the 15th of July when we actually fly out, and then it's really real and it's there, and you actually attend the Olympics. I've waited my whole life. I mean, I almost competed in the Olympics, and then my sport that I was competing in didn't become an Olympic sport. So from the age of 13, I've dreamt of an Olympics, and maybe I'm not going as an athlete, but as a coach is, I think, just as special. Can't wait to get there. The players are super excited, and I think it's so different, because while we should be exciting and celebrating and out training and playing games against other nations, with COVID, it's actually the opposite. We're hiding in our houses for the next 2 weeks so that no one catches COVID and we can actually get on the plane and fly out. So a very, very maybe preparation, but I think that's for the whole world. If I talk about the Olympics, I also think COVID has maybe leveled the playing fields, which sounds weird, but every other team in the world are professional, and they would have played 50, 60 caps leading up to an Olympic Games. No one can. Ireland's in lockdown, Germany's been in lockdown, there's been a couple Pro League games, but the whole world has had to change the way that they prepare for an Olympics. And I think, God willing, if everyone can get to the Olympics safe and healthy, it will be the event that I've dreamt of for many years.
Wonderful. Thanks, Robin. So final question. Do you have a final message for the Saints sporting family? there are a couple of people we're going to be interviewing. You're the first person we're interviewing, and naturally, as a Saints collective, we're really proud, and obviously sharing in your celebration. Also, really hope that you all get there. But do you have a final message for the Saints sporting family?
Yeah, so maybe two. I think, as you've always alluded to, anything is possible, and I think take every opportunity that you can, no matter how small it seems. I was assistant coaches for a while. I trained. I learned from different people, and when you get the opportunity, grab it, even if you feel out of your depth. I think take the chance, take the jump. Who knows where it's going to lead to. And then my motto, which you would see all over when people have tried to quote me as a coach, is just to be better today than you were yesterday, and do that every day.
I enjoy your first point. Listening to you, assistant coach, I couldn't help but get the coach of the under-10s out. So coaching the under-10s and the coaches going to the Olympics. I think there's a big message in there for many people listening. Robin, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. And I speak on behalf of all of Saints. We wish you a safe, happy, and memorable experience in Tokyo. We look forward to watching you. It's always special watching our national team in whatever sports. So we look forward to watching you guys. We hope you get there safely. Have a great time. And of course, we look forward to interviewing you post-Olympics, where there'll be some in-depth stories, both inside and outside the lines, which you can share with the Saints community. But congratulations on the journey thus far. Be safe over the next few weeks. And we look forward to watching you on telly in a few weeks' time.
Thanks so much. Look forward to sharing when I get back.
Okay, go well. God bless.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.